Hi everybody, it's Judy here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to talk about how to grow big, beautiful, lush Monstera Deliciosa. This is a Monstera Deliciosa, also known as a Swiss cheese plant, also known as a fruit salad plant, and it probably has another name out there that I don't know about, but those are the most common names that I've heard the Monstera Deliciosa called. I want to talk about my care tips and tricks on how I got my Monstera this big. It is continuing to grow and will still continue to grow, and you know, things that you can do to keep it ruly, not unruly, and keep it well suited in size wise to your space. So I'm just gonna start with the Monstera. Start from the very beginning. Number one, how to grow a big, lush Monstera Deliciosa. Number one is start with a healthy plant, or a healthy cutting, or a cutting from a healthy plant. That is the absolute number one thing that you need to do to have a big healthy plant like this. You could start from a little plant that you rescued from Bunnings or something, like from the discount section. I'm not saying that they can't go on to be big, beautiful plants like this. But if you want to have it like good from the start, good from the get-go, and something that's just gonna continue to thrive and grow for you, I would recommend starting with a healthy plant, a healthy cutting, and you're just gonna start yourself right from the start. The next thing that the Monstera Deliciosa likes is to have good, well-draining soil. So you're gonna want a soil mix that is not like chunky like an aroid mix, but soil that has good drainage, like if you mix a lot of perlite through it, or pumice, or propagation sand even, or even orchid bark, mix that through your soil mix. As long as your soil mix is well draining, if you pick it up and it just drains right through your fingers, then that is a well draining soil. Another way to know whether or not your soil is well draining is if when you go in with your watering and start to water over the top of the soil, sometimes you know how the water just sits at the top and then very slowly, painfully drains through. That means your soil is hydrophobic and it's not well draining. If it was well draining, it wouldn't take any time at all for that water to just seep in straight over the surface of the soil and drain right through your plant. Having a good draining soil mix also means that your plant isn't going to sit too wet for too long. Its roots aren't going to sit in really moist, wet soil, which can cause root rot. If your soil isn't well draining enough, the roots of your plant might suffocate and drown and rot. So that's really important, is to have a really good, well draining soil mix for your Monstera Deliciosa. It also allows the roots to just go and grow through without being stunted in soil that's really compact and tight. Having a nice airy soil mix will allow the roots to just grow freely and explore through that soil and absolutely thrive. Another thing that Monstera Deliciosa need is bright indirect light. Now, these plants will survive in lower light conditions as well, but they might not necessarily thrive and grow very quickly. I've got some Monstera in my lounge room, which are in the far corner of the lounge room, and it doesn't get any bright indirect light. It's not a super low lit area, but in terms of my house, it is low lit. And it doesn't grow very fast, which is fine. Like, I want my plant to kind of fit in that space and not get too big in that space. So having it grow a bit slower is okay for me. And that's something that you might do as well, is, for example, if you don't want your plant to outgrow that space, then give it a little bit of lower light, and it's okay to just be that size in that space, and you might be okay with that, and that's fine. But if you want your plant to grow quickly, to thrive, to keep pushing out new growth and new leaves, light is really important to your plants in order for them to thrive and to grow. Another thing for plants is, if you don't want them to outgrow that space too quickly, is don't repot them into a larger pot when they become root bound. If you keep your plants within a pot and they're just root bound in that, they won't continue to grow, because they've kind of reached their capacity in which they can grow within that pot. And if you don't want it to grow any bigger because it's as big as you need it for that space, then don't repot your plant. It's gonna be fine. Yeah, very important for the Monstera. If you want it to grow big and beautiful big leaves like this, then make sure that you're giving it lots of bright indirect light. Coming hand in hand with this light is warmth as well. These plants don't like to be cold. The Monstera natively comes from tropical areas. It is a tropical plant. So if you want them to thrive, make sure that there is warmth and humidity humidity within that space as well. Having warmth and humidity will prevent the tips from going like yellow and crispy like this. It is currently winter, which is why my Monstera has developed some yellowing tips like that, but I'm not overly concerned because they aren't spreading rapidly to the rest of the plant. I think it's simply a response to the fact that it is currently winter right now, but I know come spring and summer, this is going to absolutely take off. It's got a few little points on the leaves where they are, I don't know if you can see this. It's got a few points on the leaves where you can feel that little lump there. That's going to be a whole new leaf in a few more weeks or months maybe. This one has kind of slowed down growing for me because I do need to change the soil into a more airy, chunky mix, as well as it's probably root bound. Like, I haven't repotted it for over a year now, and I feel like it needs a little bit more space within the pot for its roots to explore and grow. Speaking of roots, like, your plant is going to grow aerial roots, which is what these are. So these are aerial roots. So these plants are actually climbers. If you see the Monstera Deliciosa in the wild, you will see them climbing up the tree, and that's what these runners are for. The bigger they get, these runners form and develop to try and grab a hold onto something so they can climb up whatever they can find, whatever these roots can attach themselves to. Which is why it's really important, if you want your Monstera to get like really, really big, give it something to climb up. Like here I've got a wooden stake, and I've also got a moss pole here, because neither one on their own was enough to support this plant. This plant, if I just let it hang, it'd just like go one way out that way and one way out the other way, because they are vining plants. They need something to attach themselves to grow up on, or just some space to grow out as well. If you want your plant to look a little bit more neat, a bit more compact, you really need to train it to grow up something or give it something to attach itself to. When I repot this plant, it's gonna be a huge job, and I need to make sure that I have a really big wooden stake for this to attach itself to or to have within the pot. And that's gonna be a job that I will definitely film and make a video of it when I get around to doing it, but I'm gonna wait till spring to do that. But she's getting really, really big, and it's definitely outgrowing this space that I've got in the corner for it. So maybe I shouldn't repot it, or maybe I could cut it back. And that's another thing. If your plant is getting too big for your space, you can definitely cut it back. So for example, this is a vining plant. So the bigger it grows, it'll start to develop new nodes. With each leaf, there is a new node that develops. So I could cut it beneath a node, pop this bit into soil here, or into a glass of water, and it will start to grow a lot of roots from this point here, and I can then pop that into another pot and start a whole new growth journey of the Swiss cheese plant. So don't be afraid to cut your plants. Cutting it will also give it a lot more strength to push out new growth in other parts of the plant. Its roots will grow out bigger and stronger. The plant itself, it just overall enjoys being cut, but not cut back too much, like within reason, you know what I mean? When it comes to watering with a Monstera Deliciosa, they can actually thrive, well, not thrive, but they can actually tolerate really long drought periods. I water my Monstera when the soil is like completely dry. So I'm just sticking my fingers in the soil there. It's coming up with still a bit of soil stuck to my finger, so it's not completely dry yet. There is still some moisture within the soil, because I think I only just watered this like last week or something. It'll probably be okay for another 3 or 4 weeks without watering it, and it's gonna be fine. And then when I do water my Monstera, I just sit it in the shower and soak in all the areas of the soil and just let it drain completely through, and then rinse and repeat. Whatever you do, don't overwater your Monstera. They don't like it. They will form like a lot of yellow leaves and even droop over if you overwater it. So it's just one of those plants that let it dry out. Let the soil dry out. Don't be worried that they're neglecting it. They actually like having their soil dry out completely. between waterings. Something that kind of for me goes hand in hand along with waterings is feeding, fertilizing the plant. Now, when you repot your Monstera, you could even mix some organic fertilizer in with your soil mix. You could put worm castings, you could put those slow release fertilizer balls in with your soil mix. But what I personally like to do with my Monstera is feed it liquid fertilizer with every single time I water. Now, it's really important to fertilize after you've just watered the plant so that you've allowed the water to soak through the whole plant, and then you go in with your diluted solution of fertilizer of choice. The reason why I always wet the soil first is so that I don't risk burning the leaves or burning the roots of my plant when I go in with my fertilizer. Even if I do dilute the fertilizer, it's really important to wet the soil first, kind of like conditioning the soil, and then going in with your feed, with your fertilizer. I fertilize my plants almost with every single watering with a really watered down solution of, I have been using Power Feed, but now I'm using this fertilizer called Thrive, and I'm really loving it. It's working so well for all my plants. I feel like I have gotten like so much results from this fertilizer called Thrive in a shorter amount of time, which is why I'm going to continue to use Thrive instead of Power Feed. I don't feel like Power Feed is a bad one, but I feel like I got more results from Thrive than I have Power Feed. So that's just a little insight into what I use to feed my plants. But you could use whatever you want, whatever you find works for you. And some plants will need different things as well. So it's just a matter of doing your research. But in general terms for my Monstera, it's being pretty happy with like the all-purpose, all-inclusive nutrient. It's been pretty happy with that. So I feed my plant every single time I water after I've watered, and then let the soil dry through, and then I repeat again next time I water. Another thing that you're going to want to do with your Monstera is to rotate it. So every 2 weeks or so, just rotate it a little bit, and then every 2 weeks or so again, rotate a little bit. So the reason why we want to rotate our plants is to encourage even growth all the way around the plant. I don't know if you have noticed or not, but plants will kind of lean towards the light. So for example, if this plant was sitting here, my window is right here. This will eventually, all its leaves will start to face towards the light. So that's a natural thing for it to do. If you will see prayer plants have leaves that move with the sun. When the sun goes up, the sun goes down, the leaves go up, the leaves go down. It's just one of those plants where the leaves move. These plants, the leaves don't move that fast as prayer plants do, but their leaves will gravitate and move towards the light. So the reason why you want to rotate your plant is so that you encourage even growth all the way around the plant. So for example, if I just left it like this and just let all the leaves face towards the light, and that's okay. If you want your plant to only have like a one side and have a clear like back to it, it has a front side and a back side, that's okay. Maybe you want your plants to look like that, but your plant will really appreciate you if you give it an even chance of light all the way around the plant, and it'll encourage strong growth all the way around the plant, not just on one side of it. So that's why it's important to rotate your plants and just have it healthy, full and lush all the way around rather than just on one side of the plant. So what else? Oh, another thing is you are going to want to clean the leaves of your plant. So if your leaves are sitting dusty or they're sitting dirty or have cobwebs on them, they're not going to be able to photosynthesize and absorb light as efficiently as it could if it had nice, clean, dust-free leaves like this. So I know it can be a huge, almost full-time job to clean individually all the leaves of your plants, but the way I do it, and I've created a full video about this, and I'm gonna leave that one linked down below. But in short, the way I clean my leaves is I do it in the shower. So when I water my plants, I don't just water my plants, there's three things that happens. Is I water my plants, I fertilize my plants, because I do it at the same time, and I clean the leaves of my plants. So when I put it in the shower, it's not just watering it, but I take the shower head and I wash off all the dust and even potential pests on the leaves. So that's four things. It's pest management as well. It washes off any spiders or potential spider mites. I might wash off any aphids. And then I go in with a really good spray over with neem oil or eco oil. I use the eco oil. It's cheaper, it doesn't smell as bad as neem oil, and it works just as well for me as well. And it keeps the leaves shiny. So there's a lot of birds that you're hitting with this one stone. Not that I'm recommending hitting birds with stones, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You get it, okay? You get it. So there's a lot of things that happen when I put my plants in the shower. It's like a whole maintenance thing that happens all at once. And it's kind of a really efficient way to care for my plants as well, because it's happening all at once instead of having to drag out my plant maintenance process throughout the week. So one day I water, next day I fertilize, next day I clean the leaves, next day I spray it down with neem oil. It doesn't have to be like that. It's actually so simple. Chuck it all in the shower, water it, feed it, clean it, dust it off, spritz it down, and it's all done. It's all done, all in one day, you know? It sounds like a lot, but it's really not. It's actually so easy, you guys. It's easy to get your plants this happy. In recap, give them light, give them warmth, give them humidity, feed them, prune them when they need it, let their soil dry out. Do not overwater your plants. It's probably the #1 killer of houseplants is overwatering. Let the soil dry out. They're gonna be okay. And I think that is basically it. I don't know if I probably missed something, and if I did, if you think about it, leave it in the comments. I'm sure other people will appreciate your experience as well. Let me know in the comments as well. I would really like to know, you guys, genuinely, please let me know if you want to see individual videos like this talking about specific care needs of like one plant instead of like a variety of plants, and my experience with that one plant instead of the basic genus. Like I've created a ficus collection video and I did an overall care of the ficus variety. But if you want to see like one video of maybe talking about my ficus tenaki and the specific care of that one plant, let me know. I mean, it'll basically all be the same kind of, but I mean, if you want to know about a specific alocasia that you've seen that I have, or the fiddly fig tree, which is also a ficus, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video about that. I always listen to you guys and I love your comments. I appreciate them so much. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something about the Monstera Deliciosa. It's very easy. It's an easy care plant. I know it sounds like a lot, but once you've got not the rules, it's not rules, but once you've got its care needs down pat, it's gonna be fine, you're gonna be fine, and you're gonna have a beautiful Monstera. So that's really it for this video. Please like it if you did, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye! How to grow big, beautiful, lush... Let me start again.